Hello folks, this is Freedom Fighter. Today is Thursday, July the 18th, 2024. I just had my morning briefing with Goldilocks, and as we can see, Goldilocks has already shared some amazing articles that we're going to discuss today. First, we're going to talk about Hong Kong. Why is Hong Kong so important? Don't think because you don't have Hong Kong currency that doesn't apply to you and it's not important. Why is it important? Hong Kong does trade with over 130 countries. So as Hong Kong, we're going to see establishing stablecoin regulation, stablecoins, when a country has stablecoins and they do trade with other countries, those other countries as well must also have stablecoins in order to continuously doing trade with the country that does have stablecoins. Then we're going to talk about the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency here in the United States and capital requirements for banks. So we're going to see where there's proposed recovery plans in place for banks here in the United States. Then, and that is also with the Federal Register. So pay attention to that one. Then we're going to briefly discuss, Goldilocks shared an article about exchange rates. What are they, how they work, and why they fluctuate. All right. And so those are very, very important ones. We're going to jump right into it. Let's go. The Financial Services and the Treasury Bureau and the Hong Kong Monetary Authority jointly issued today the consultation conclusions on the legislative proposal to implement a regulatory regime for fiat reference stablecoin issuers in Hong Kong. Consultation conclusions for the stablecoin legislative proposals are published and complete. The regulatory process for Hong Kong in the use of stablecoins are ready for production. When Goldilocks mentions the regulatory process, folks, think of the regulation process. So the regulation process for Hong Kong and the use of stablecoins are ready for production. The next step is to implement a regulatory regime for stablecoin issuers in Hong Kong. When you see and hear regulatory regime, think regulations. This will allow Hong Kong to be able to produce and use digital assets as money. Don't forget, Hong Kong does trade with over 130 countries around the world. Some of those are for countries that we have currencies for. So just think, Hong Kong is establishing regulations and a regulatory regime for stablecoins. What must the other countries do as well? Same thing. You got it. Let's go. We're going to go into the next one by Goldilocks. From the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency. The Office of the Comptroller of the Currency, folks, this is the agency within the United States that governs the currencies, our currency within the United States. The Office of the Comptroller of the Currency is proposing to amend its recovery planning guidelines. The expansion of these guidelines will apply to insured national banks, federal savings associations, and federal branches. These are the banks that are in our local communities, our local community banks, credit unions as well, federal registered banks and branches banks that are insured national banks, which are a majority of the banks that are in our communities. These guidelines will cover banks with an average of a total of consolidated assets of $100 billion or more. So these guidelines are specific to banks that have at least $100 billion or more. This will include the incorporation of a testing standard and clarify the role of non-financial, including operational and strategic, risk and recovery planning. It is important for us to check with our banks to see if it has over $100 billion worth of assets, or incorporate it in a larger bank to see if it will be included in a recovery plan. Many of our banks have been consolidating since 1981, but others will still be in process and throughout this transition. These comments are expected to be turned in by August the 2nd, 2024 to the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency. So these comments, folks, just think similar to a local city council meeting that you receive an agenda of the meeting in advance and you can attend for comments if you so choose. This is similar with the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency on August the 2nd. It's a time for the public to be able to comment on these regulatory guidelines that are being implemented for banks that have 100 billion or more. As you can see, we have a plan for banking recovery that will take place after the transition of the old banking system to the new digital economy. This plan is now recorded on the Federal Registry and ready for implementation. The Federal Registry, folks, is so important so that when regulations are implemented, they are recorded for public consumption, for public view in the Federal Registry whenever a law or regulation is passed through. So now, if you want, you can choose to go online and research the assets for whatever bank you choose, and it'll show. So if you choose to look up Chase, Wells Fargo, Fifth Third, whatever bank, so you don't necessarily have to call your banks and ask them these questions if you may feel like you don't have the ability to communicate with a bank to do so. Feel free, simple online search for a specific bank to find out their assets. That'll help you as well. Let's go to the next one that Goldilocks is sharing, the next article. This is specific about exchange rates. The main factor in determining currency exchange rates is the supply and demand of currencies on global foreign exchange markets. A currency's price will rise if the demand is high, and its price will fall if the demand is low. It is just that simple. Although there are other determining factors such as interest rates, inflation, political stability, speculation, recession, deficits, stock market, and balance of payments. The bottom line is this, Goldilocks says. The bottom line is, and on those days when you ever wonder if this is going to happen, remember that it has to at this point. We are moving to a local currency payment regime on a global scale, and the demand for currencies will increase the price of them. When Goldilocks says we are moving to a local currency payment regime on a global scale, what Goldilocks is referring to and stating is that countries are moving to their own local currency, to use their own local currencies instead of depending on the US dollar. Iraq is moving to their own local currency regime. Vietnam to their own local currency regime. Russia, China, Venezuela. Globally, on a global scale, every country that has been dominated by the US dollar for usage in their country, besides using their own, will now begin to use their own currencies in their local countries. That's what Goldilocks is referring to. Next, Goldilocks says, depending on what part of the world you live on at this time, we are also somewhere between completing regulations and implementing payment systems on the new digital economy. The digital payment implementation will include the reclassification of gold that is in process. At that point, we can look for credit valuation adjustments. What are credit valuation adjustments? The adjustments on the values of assets. What are assets? Digital currencies, paper currencies, precious metals. So at this point, Goldilocks says, we can look for credit valuation adjustments when gold is reclassified in our new system. All right, beautiful folks. This should be very, very straightforward, to the point for you to understand. If not, please feel free. Come into the Goldilocks QFS Dialogues room for Q&A. We'll answer any and all the questions you have to help you become educated on all this. But this is very, very powerful what Goldilocks has shared. Hong Kong, over 130 countries do trade with over 130 countries, of which currencies we hold. Hong Kong is looking to implement their stablecoin regulations. Now other countries also will eventually begin to do the same thing. The Office of the Comptroller of the Currency here in the United States, banks with $100 billion or more in assets. Now the comment period is coming up on August the 2nd. It's pretty much rubber stamp. Recovery plans are in place, and then also to understand what exchange rates are, how they operate, how they work, what makes them fluctuate, supply and demand. We love you. We appreciate you. Show someone unconditional love as always, and we hope someone can show you some unconditional